The first sign that something had changed came in the form of a black car that did not belong on that street. It was early afternoon in Scottsdale, Arizona, the sun steady and bright, the air dry in that quiet way that made every sound sharper. The security cameras at the front gate of the estate had already alerted the staff, but the man sitting inside the glass-walled office overlooking the courtyard had seen it before anyone said a word. Adrian Whitlock watched the car roll slowly to a stop outside the gate. He did not stand. He did not hurry. At 67 years old, he had learned that urgency was usually wasted on people who had already made their intentions clear. The intercom buzzed. "Sir," the head of security said, "there's a man here asking for you. Says his name is Nathan." The name hung in the air for a moment. Nathan. It had been decades since Adrian had heard it spoken with any meaning. He leaned back in his chair, eyes steady, mind already moving ahead of emotion. "Let him in," Adrian said. "Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know." The gates opened slowly. The car drove up the long, curved driveway lined with olive trees Adrian had planted himself when the property was nothing more than desert and possibility. Back then, no one had believed in his plans. Back then, even his own family had called him foolish for walking away from the security of their expectations. Now the estate stood like proof carved into the earth. Nathan stepped out of the car with hesitation he tried to hide. He was 41 now, taller than Adrian remembered, thinner. The sharp confidence he had once carried was replaced by something more fragile. Behind him, a woman climbed out, perfectly dressed, her eyes scanning everything with practiced calculation. Adrian did not need introductions to know she was Nathan's wife, and then the back door opened. A girl stepped out slowly. She looked around with quiet curiosity, her gaze lingering on the fountain, the garden, the vastness of a life she had clearly never imagined. Something tightened in Adrian's chest. Innocence had a way of appearing where it was least expected. Adrian stood and walked outside. For a moment, no one spoke. "Nathan," Adrian said finally. His son swallowed. "Dad." The word sounded unfamiliar, like it had been rehearsed on the drive over. They had not spoken in more than 20 years, not since Nathan had told him that he wanted nothing to do with a man who chose work over family, not since the accusations, the resentment, the silence that had stretched longer than Adrian had thought possible. "What brings you here?" Adrian asked. Nathan hesitated, then forced a smile. "I thought it was time we reconnected." Adrian almost smiled. Time. Interesting how time mattered only when something valuable appeared at the end of it. The woman stepped forward. "We didn't know how to reach you," she said smoothly. "You moved, changed numbers. It wasn't easy." Adrian looked at her. "I did not hide." Silence again. The girl shifted beside them. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Leela." Adrian's gaze soft. "Hello, Leela." She smiled, and for a moment the tension dissolved. Then Nathan cleared his throat. "We should talk inside." They sat in the great room, sunlight spilling across marble floors and glass walls. Nathan's eyes moved constantly, absorbing every detail. The artwork, the architecture, the scale. "So," Adrian said, "tell me why you're really here." Nathan's shoulders stiffened. "It's not what you think." Adrian waited. The woman spoke first. "There's been a situation." Adrian did not respond. Nathan looked down at his hands. "We need help." There it was. "How much?" Adrian asked. The question startled them. 50 million, Nathan said. The number hung between them like something alive. Even the girl looked surprised. Adrian leaned back slowly. "That is a very specific amount. It's for medical treatment," the woman said quickly. "Experimental. Insurance won't cover it." "For whom?" She hesitated. "For Leela." The girl looked from one adult to another, confusion spreading across her face. Adrian noticed everything. The glance, the hesitation, the timing. He folded his hands. "What condition?" Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Adrian's voice remained calm. "You drove across 2 states. You rehearsed this. And yet you cannot answer a simple question." The silence grew heavier. Leela looked at Adrian again. "I'm not sick," she said quietly. The room froze. The woman's face hardened. Leela stopped talking, but the damage was done. Adrian's gaze sharpened. He had built his entire life on reading small details others ignored. Lies were rarely about what was said. They were about what slipped through. Nathan stood abruptly. "This is complicated." Adrian nodded. I'm sure it is. The meeting ended shortly after. They left with polite words and forced smiles, but Adrian did not return to his office. Instead, he walked slowly to the security room. Find everything, he told his team. Everything, sir? Yes, financial records, medical history, legal filings, background checks. Every lie had a structure, and structures could be dismantled. As the screens flickered to life and data began to appear, Adrian felt something he had not felt in years. Not anger, clarity. Because people who abandoned you when you had nothing often returned with greater cruelty when they believed you had everything. And Adrian intended to discover exactly how far his own son had fallen. He watched the footage of the driveway again. The hesitation, the calculation, the girl's confusion. Something about this was deeper than money. And the deeper the truth, the more dangerous it became. Adrian leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. He had waited decades for closure. Now it had arrived at his front gate. But he had a feeling that what he was about to uncover would not only destroy the lie his son had built, it would destroy the man as well. Adrian did not sleep that night. At his age, rest had already become lighter, more deliberate, but this time it was something else. His mind moved through possibilities the way it had for decades, when deals, risks, and survival depended on seeing what others missed. By sunrise, the first reports had already arrived. He sat in the same office overlooking the courtyard, a cup of black coffee untouched beside him. The desert light painted long shadows across the stone, and for a moment he remembered the early years, the ones when he had lived in a trailer on this very land, sleeping beside blueprints and unpaid invoices. Back then, Nathan had been a boy who followed him everywhere. That memory felt distant now. The door opened. "Sir," the head of security said, placing a tablet on the desk. "We have preliminary findings." Adrian nodded. The man hesitated. "You were right. Something is wrong." Adrian did not ask how wrong. He simply began reading. Nathan's financial records showed years of instability, failed businesses, loans, lawsuits, short-term jobs. The pattern of someone always chasing opportunity without building anything solid. But the deeper layer was worse. The woman, Rebecca, had a history Adrian had not expected. Multiple identities, different last names, legal settlements sealed in 2 states. And then something else. Fraud. Medical fraud. Adrian's fingers tightened slightly on the tablet. Insurance scams, fundraising deception, fake treatment claims, emotional manipulation. It was not new to her, it was a profession. He leaned back. "So this has happened before?" "Yes, sir," the security chief said. "But this time the scale is larger." Adrian looked up. "How much have they already taken?" "Several $100,000 from private donors over the past 2 years. The room went quiet. "And Leela?" Adrian asked. The man hesitated. "She appears completely healthy." Adrian closed his eyes briefly. The child's confusion had not been an act. He felt something colder than anger. He felt precision. "Continue," he said. The next report was even more unsettling. Rebecca had recently contacted high-net-worth individuals in the region. Adrian's name appeared multiple times in her communications. She had researched him extensively, not as family, as a target. Adrian almost smiled. The realization did not hurt the way it once would have. It clarified, because betrayal from strangers was predictable. Betrayal from family was an illusion people clung to until reality forced them to let go. "Have they contacted anyone else connected to me?" Adrian asked. "Yes," the man said. "Former partners. One charitable foundation." Adrian stood. "They are building a narrative." "Sir?" "A public story. A sick child. A wealthy grandfather refusing to help." The security chief nodded slowly. "Yes." Adrian walked to the window. The estate looked peaceful, perfect, controlled. But outside those gates, stories could become weapons. He turned back. "Prepare a response." "What kind?" Adrian's voice remained calm. "We will let them proceed." The man blinked. "Sir, I want to see the full extent of their strategy." He paused. "And their mistakes. Because people who relied on lies often became careless once they believed they were winning." The phone on his desk buzzed. "Unknown number." He answered. "Mr. Whitlock," a smooth voice said. "This is Thomas Keller from Keller & Brooks Media." Adrian recognized the name immediately. "A major investigative outlet." "Yes. We've received information that your granddaughter is critically ill and that you have refused treatment funding. Would you like to comment?" Adrian almost laughed. The speed impressed him. No comment, he said. The call ended. He looked at his security chief. Stage 1, Adrian said quietly. They have begun. That afternoon another surprise arrived, a courier. Inside the envelope was a legal notice, a petition. Nathan was requesting access to family trust assets. The audacity was almost admirable. Adrian read the document slowly. There were emotional statements, claims of abandonment, allegations of neglect. The woman had constructed a compelling narrative. For a moment Adrian admired the craftsmanship. Then he handed the paper back. File nothing. Sir, we respond when it benefits us. That evening Adrian did something unexpected. He drove himself. No security, no driver, just the long road into the city. He parked near a small public park where he had seen Leela playing during his initial background search. She was there, on a swing, alone. Nathan sat on a bench, head in his hands. For a moment Adrian simply watched. Then he walked forward. Nathan looked up, shock flashing across his face. Dad, what are you doing here? Adrian sat beside him. You forgot something, Nathan swallowed. What? Adrian looked toward the girl. Truth. Nathan's shoulders dropped. I didn't want this, he said quietly. Adrian did not respond. She handles everything, Nathan continued. The money, the plans. I just went along. Adrian studied him. And now? Nathan's voice cracked. I don't know how to stop. Adrian nodded slowly, because that at least sounded real. But reality did not erase consequences. He stood. You have already crossed lines that cannot be undone. Nathan looked up, fear clear now. What are you going to do? Adrian's expression did not change. I am going to protect the innocent. He walked away without another word. Behind him the child laughed as she swung higher. But Adrian knew the laughter would not last. Because by the time this ended, the truth would not simply surface. It would explode. And the people who had built their lives on deception would not survive the fallout. The fallout began faster than Adrian expected. By the following morning the story had spread. Headlines appeared across regional outlets. Social media amplified the narrative. A wealthy, cold-hearted businessman refusing to help his sick granddaughter. Emotional photos of Leela circulated, taken carefully to suggest fragility without making direct medical claims. Adrian sat in his office watching the coverage without emotion. This was exactly what he had allowed. The security team monitored every post, every article, every comment. Patterns emerged, the same accounts pushing the story, the same phrases repeated, professional, organized. Rebecca was not improvising, she had done this before. Public sentiment is turning, his media director said. There are calls for boycotts. Several charities are asking questions. Adrian nodded. Let it grow. The woman blinked. Sir? Pressure exposes weaknesses. He turned to the wall of screens, financial transfers, emails, encrypted messages. His private investigators had gone deeper overnight. The next layer was disturbing. Rebecca was not only running scams, she was connected to a network. Multiple cases across different states, children used as emotional leverage, false diagnoses, fundraising campaigns, disappearing once the money arrived, but this time she had chosen the wrong target. Do we have enough? Adrian asked. Almost, the lead investigator said. But there is one complication. Adrian waited. She has something on Nathan that caught his attention. What kind of leverage? The man hesitated. Criminal involvement, forged signatures, financial fraud connected to previous cases. Adrian understood immediately. Nathan was not only a victim, he was entangled, which explained his desperation. That afternoon, Adrian made his move. He requested a meeting, public, at a high-profile charity gala in Phoenix. Nathan and Rebecca accepted. Of course they did. The event was filled with cameras, donors, and powerful figures. Adrian entered last, calm and composed, the room shifting subtly as attention moved toward him. Nathan looked nervous. Rebecca looked confident. They greeted him with carefully rehearsed warmth. We're glad you came, she said. I wanted clarity, Adrian replied. The conversation drew attention quickly. Rebecca began first. All we want is help for a child, she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Adrian nodded. And you will have it. The room stilled. Nathan looked shocked. Rebecca smiled. 50 million, she said softly. Adrian's gaze did not change. You will have every dollar required for legitimate treatment. The smile faltered slightly, but only after full medical verification. He continued. Rebecca recovered quickly. That's unnecessary. It is standard. The tension grew. Guests watched openly now. Adrian stepped closer. I also require financial transparency. All previous donations disclosed. Her eyes hardened. You don't trust family? I trust evidence. Nathan shifted uneasily. Rebecca leaned forward. If you refuse, this story will not end well for you. Adrian almost smiled. On the contrary, it will end exactly as it should. He turned and signaled. Within seconds, several individuals entered the room. Not security, federal investigators. The atmosphere shattered. Rebecca's composure cracked for the first time. What is this? Adrian spoke calmly. A full investigation into financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Nathan's face drained of color. Rebecca stepped back. You can't prove anything. Adrian handed one of the agents a file. The room watched in stunned silence. Years of documentation, bank transfers, false identities, medical fabrication, the network. The agents moved closer. Rebecca's voice sharpened. This is harassment. One agent spoke. You are under federal investigation. We ask that you cooperate. Guests whispered. Phones appeared. Cameras recorded. Rebecca turned to Nathan. Say something, but Nathan could not speak. Because he knew. The truth had caught up. Rebecca's control vanished. This isn't over, she hissed. Adrian's voice remained steady. It already is. She was escorted away. The room erupted. Nathan stood frozen. Leela looked confused and frightened. Adrian knelt beside her. It's going to be all right, he said gently. Nathan finally spoke. Dad, I didn't know how far this had gone. Adrian looked at him. You knew enough. Nathan's eyes filled. What happens now? Adrian stood. That depends on what you choose to do next. The investigation moved quickly after that. Rebecca's network collapsed. Accounts were frozen. Victims came forward. But Adrian's focus remained on the child. Leela began staying at the estate temporarily. She explored the gardens, the library, the quiet spaces Adrian had built for a life he once believed he would share with family. One evening she sat beside him. Are you mad at Dad? She asked. Adrian thought carefully. I am disappointed. Will you forgive him? He looked at her. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. She nodded slowly as if understanding more than her age allowed. But the situation was not resolved. Because the deeper investigation uncovered something Adrian had not expected. Something that would change the entire story. When the final report arrived on his desk, he read it twice. Then a third time. Because the truth it contained did not only explain Rebecca's control. It revealed that the past Nathan had believed was real had been manipulated from the beginning, and once that truth surfaced, there would be no way to return to the life any of them had known. The report stayed on Adrian's desk for almost an hour before he opened it again. At 67, he had learned that truth did not become easier the second time. It simply became clearer. He leaned back in his chair and stared through the glass wall of his office. Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the desert in gold. The estate looked calm, controlled, safe. But the past had a way of reaching even the most protected places. He pressed the intercom. Bring Nathan here. It did not take long. Nathan entered quietly, shoulders tense, eyes shadowed. The events of the past days had stripped away whatever confidence he had once carried. You wanted to see me? He asked. Adrian gestured toward the chair. Sit. Nathan obeyed. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Adrian slid the report across the desk. I want you to read this. Nathan frowned but picked it up. As he scanned the pages, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. This isn't possible. It is, Adrian said. Nathan shook his head. No. There has to be a mistake. Adrian remained calm. DNA analysis, legal documentation, hospital records. It is thorough. Nathan's voice broke. You're saying Rebecca lied about more than the scams? Yes. The room felt smaller. Nathan's hands trembled as he reached the last page. She told me Leela was my daughter. Adrian's gaze softened slightly. She needed leverage. Nathan dropped the file. I raised her. I loved her. She called me Dad. And that has not changed, Adrian said. Nathan looked up, confusion and pain colliding. What do you mean? Biology does not erase reality. Nathan swallowed. So what now? You want to take her away too? Adrian shook his head. No, silence. Then why tell me? Because truth matters. Nathan laughed bitterly. Truth? After everything? Adrian leaned forward. There is more. Nathan's chest tightened. What else could there possibly be? Adrian's voice remained steady. The investigation into Rebecca's network uncovered something unexpected. Years ago, one of her earliest cases involved falsified custody and inheritance records. Nathan froze. What does that have to do with me? Adrian held his gaze. The timeline matches your childhood. The words landed like a physical blow. Nathan stood abruptly. No, that's not possible. My mother was vulnerable, Adrian said quietly, and easily manipulated. Nathan staggered back. You're saying my entire life may have been shaped by someone else's ambition? Nathan's mind raced. She isolated you, Adrian continued, created distance, encouraged resentment, ensured you would eventually sever ties. Nathan's voice dropped. So she could control me later, yes. The realization hit slowly, all the anger, the distance, the years of silence, manufactured. Nathan sank back into the chair. I wasted decades hating you. Adrian did not respond. Nathan looked up again, eyes wet. Why didn't you fight harder? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. Because love is not control. Nathan closed his eyes. The silence stretched. Then something shifted. What do I do now? Nathan asked. Adrian studied him. That depends on who you want to be. The question hung in the air. Nathan straightened slightly. I want to fix this. Adrian nodded once. Then you start by telling the truth. Over the next weeks, Nathan cooperated fully. He testified, he provided evidence, he helped investigators dismantle what remained of Rebecca's operation. Public opinion shifted, the narrative changed. The man once seen as a cold billionaire now appeared as a protector. But Adrian did not care about public image, he cared about Leela. She had begun to settle into a routine at the estate. School, tutors, gardening with the staff, quiet evenings in the library. One night she sat beside Adrian again. Are things better now? She asked. Yes, he said. She looked thoughtful. Dad seems different. He is learning. She nodded. Will he stay? Adrian considered the question. If he earns it, she smiled. Children understood redemption in ways adults often forgot. But the past was not finished, because one final discovery remained. A hidden account, funds Rebecca had moved before her arrest, millions, and the destination of that money revealed a partner no one had expected. Someone powerful, someone who had protected her for years. Adrian stared at the report. The war had not been about family. It had been about something far larger, and if he wanted to protect the future, he would have to confront that truth as well. Because some enemies did not reveal themselves until the last moment, and Adrian Whitlock had no intention of allowing this one to remain in the shadows. The name in the report was not one Adrian had expected. He read it again, slower this time, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something less dangerous. But they did not. Gareth Voss. At first the name meant nothing, but Adrian's memory had been trained over decades to hold details others forgot. It surfaced quickly. A venture capital magnate, a philanthropist, a man who appeared on magazine covers and charity boards, the kind of figure who built reputations on generosity while quietly controlling industries, and, more importantly, a former silent investor in one of Adrian's earliest construction firms. Adrian leaned back in his chair, understanding settling into place like a final piece of machinery locking into position. This had never been random. Rebecca had not found him by chance. Someone had pointed her in his direction. He pressed the intercom, bring legal and security. Now, within minutes, the room filled. Adrian placed the report in the center of the table. This ends today. The strategy was simple. Precision, exposure, timing. Over the next days, Adrian's team traced the hidden funds, shell corporations, offshore accounts, layers of distance designed to obscure responsibility. But the digital trail remained. It always did. They discovered that Voss had financed multiple fraudulent operations, emotional manipulation campaigns, identity theft, insurance fraud. Always through intermediaries, always insulated. But not this time, because this time the target had resources equal to his own. The confrontation took place in Voss's private office overlooking downtown Phoenix. The room was filled with glass and steel, the city spread beneath them like a map. Voss smiled as Adrian entered. I wondered when you would come. You knew this would happen. Eventually, they sat across from each other. This was never about your son, Voss said calmly. It was about leverage. Adrian said nothing. You built something extraordinary, Voss continued, and you refused to sell. I prefer cooperation, but when cooperation fails, pressure becomes necessary. You used my family. Business requires efficiency. The words confirmed everything. Adrian leaned forward. You miscalculated. Voss smiled. I rarely do. Adrian placed a folder on the table. Inside were copies of financial records, transfers, connections. For the first time, Voss's expression changed. You think this will stop me? No, Adrian said. But it will stop the world from believing you. He stood. Outside the office, federal agents entered. Voss rose. This is temporary. Men like me do not fall. Adrian's voice remained steady. Men like you fall when they underestimate the wrong person. The arrest was swift. The news spread faster than any previous story. The narrative shifted again. The scandal reached international headlines, but Adrian did not celebrate, because victory did not erase the years that had been lost. That evening he returned home. Nathan was waiting, I heard, his son said. Adrian nodded. It's finished. Nathan hesitated. I don't know how to thank you. You don't. Silence settled. Instead, Nathan said something else. I want to rebuild. Not your business, not your money. Just this. Adrian studied him. Trust is earned, I know. Leela ran into the room then, breaking the tension. Grandpa, Dad said we're going to the beach tomorrow. Adrian smiled for the first time that day. Yes, he said. We are. Weeks passed. The estate felt different. Laughter returned. Routine formed. Nathan worked with Adrian, learning slowly, rebuilding respect through effort rather than words. One afternoon, they stood together in the garden. You always knew, Nathan said quietly, that I would come back. Adrian looked at the horizon. I hoped. Nathan nodded. I won't waste this chance. Adrian placed a hand on his shoulder. Then don't. Years later, the empire Adrian built expanded beyond profit. Charities, medical foundations, support for victims of fraud. And every decision carried one lesson. Power was not measured by wealth. It was measured by what you protected. Because in the end, Adrian Whitlock had not defeated his enemies through anger. He had defeated them through patience, clarity, and the refusal to become like them. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.